Hello, people. My name is Anuradha, and today we are doing the 4th episode of LoudST. We have been talking a lot. All meaningful conversations so far. No trolling, no hashtag no trolling, no shouting. Today we are discussing our views and our opinions, our observations on domestic workers. How we, the employers, treat domestic workers, and the presence or absence of legislation in this space. So there's one thing I was thinking. I was wondering as to how to start this conversation today. I was discussing this with Swapnil in the car this morning. That, in our traditional setup, we have two roles, that of a breadwinner, another of the caregiver. And so far, the roles have been very gender stereotypical. The man makes money, the woman takes care of the house and the kids. Okay? That's the traditional conventional setup. Now, in this breadwinner and caregiver setup, with affordability and over time, with roles changing a little, roles overlapping, the work of the caregiver, the caregiving tasks, they started getting outsourced to domestic workers, to the help, as we often call them. I have an objection to the word help, and I'll come to that. So earlier too, we would not give much importance to caregiving. And with this bit of our work being outsourced, the work of the domestic workers remains invisible. Okay, because this is something that we've just outsourced because we can afford it now, or because the woman, I'm stepping outside of my house to do other things. So that work, because we have basically, it feels like we have no respect for this kind of work. And that is probably the reason we do not recognize domestic work as work. That is probably one reason why we still don't have proper legislation recognizing domestic work as work and having a narrative where we talk about the employment rights of this section of workers. And let me just come to the point where I said I have an objection to the term, the help. Because they're not voluntarily doing this. They are our employees. This section of workers are the employees of all of us sitting here, or people watching us today. And we have just, when you start using the word the help, the maid, servants, an objectionable word probably in today's times. When we say such things, we are actually not recognizing their work as work. And that is one of the biggest challenges there is, that we do not recognize this work as work. There are two things in this entire space. One, there are behavioral issues, the way the society treats this section of workers. And the second bit is the lack of legislation. I say a lack of legislation as we go around this discussion. We'll understand why I keep saying that there's a lack of legislation in this space. But think about it, the people who come and work with us every day, there is no concept of minimum wage. There's no concept of benefits. There's no concept of proper leaves. There is no concept of offering a certain kind of working conditions. There are three kinds of domestic workers, right? One is your part-time worker who works at 10 places. She comes to you for an hour, does your work, and goes to the next place. Then there's your full-time worker who comes in the morning, leaves in the evening. Then there's your live-in. Okay? And live-in workers typically come from placement agencies. And this space too is not regulated. Okay? Which, we will all talk about. To be honest, I feel very strongly about this because I notice how blatantly discriminating we have been, okay? How we have completely been invisible to this segment of workers. We may be nice to them, but you know what? The standards are too low anyway. The bars are set too low because if you're not hitting them, you think you're doing a great job. If you're not starving them, you think you're a good person. That is how we look at ourselves. We are nice to them. Okay, the bars are too low. Extremely, the bar is too low. The standards are too low. We are competing with the headline makers who say this person died because of this reason. This person was locked in. This person was tortured. This person was not paid for years. We compare ourselves to them and we think we are such amazing people. And that is what bothers me because, we still keep that broken cup aside for serving tea to our domestic worker, to our help. Okay? This is a different set of utensils. There is a different, we don't give them a seat at the table, literally. Okay? The one who cooks for you is served food in a different utensil. Okay? When you hire them, you interview them asking their caste, their religion. You have barriers that this caste person won't enter your puja space. We have such random things that we do day and night. There are chances that the people sitting here don't do it, but we do 1,000 other things without realizing how discriminating we have been, how unaware we have been. The fact that and the lack of legislation in this space actually makes us forget that we are being criminals because there's no law. So hence, we are not being criminals. We do not realize that we are accountable for the people who work at our places. They're not extended family, no, they're workers, they're our employees. But are we really looking at them that way? So this is what, I have a few other things to say. These are my initial thoughts. So I'll pass on, Susmita already has a mic. We'll begin this way, we'll come this way, and let's take it as we go.
Thank you, Anuradha. I'm Susmita. I run an organization called Alpaviram, and which is about sustainable living. So the whole idea of giving back to society is what brought Alpaviram around. And one of the ideas was also interacting with people in my travels who come from the remote areas to cities like Delhi in search of jobs, in search of better prospects, and how we can create job opportunities for them in their in their hometowns, instead of having all of them come to a city where there's a lot of exploitation. Like Anuradha correctly pointed out, that in the case of domestic helps, there is no regulation. So the whole idea was to try and get everybody together and talking about responsible practices that we can incorporate on a day-to-day basis. What really brings the moment I read about this, what really came to mind was an experience in Vrindavan, where we met a widow who has been living there. She was abandoned by her family, and she was forced to come here and live with a family in Delhi, who kept her as a full-time help in the house, but she was not given her monthly wages. They kept the money to themselves, saying that, we are keeping it safe for you. But she was given a small allowance from that money for essentials. And with time, they stopped doing that, even that. They would say, whatever you need, you let us know and we'll get it for you. And then they would conveniently forget because they had work, they had their own lives. And that woman who was doing all the things at home, was managing her home, she did not get her actual pay till the day she decided to just walk out. She just left everything behind and she went off to Vrindavan, hoping for a better life. But we all know what the situation of the widows in Vrindavan truly is. They do not have, it's only now that at least they have access to toilets. Yeah. They don't even have that much in Vrindavan. So I think that really comes to light, and I've lived alone in this city for about 18 years. So domestic help, whatever term you'd like to use, I'm still trying to understand a better term for it. But they have been a very important part of my life. In many cases, they have been the only actual human connect I've had living alone in this city. So I've always had a very good conversations with them, and I've actually felt like they're a part of my family and I'm a part of their family. So yes, I would really want them to have certain privileges. I hear about the way they are treated in other houses, like right now it's winters, and 7 in the morning, you have to travel to come to your place of work, and you have to wash dishes or wash clothes, and it's ice cold water, guys. It's water that I wouldn't touch, but they have to. So really, I would love to see more legislation in this place, and I hope we can all come up with ideas that I could incorporate to make my home a better space for everybody who comes there or lives there.
Hi, my name is Ranjan. I'm a freelance writer. I just came to know about this through Anuradha. And moreover, I had just recently seen some documentaries regarding modern day slavery, and where, there was just some women who had traveled from some other country to work in another space, like, as domestic help and all. And then they were not given proper wages and discrimination and everything. So that just got me interested in it. I mean, I have no real expert, when it comes to the topic, and we haven't really, myself or my family, we haven't really employed domestic workers, and also I have no real experience in that. But I've seen my friends, and when I go to their places, they are like maids coming in and working and all. So just, and also I had a friend who is deeply into researching this topic. So through him also I got to know a lot about what's actually happening. I had no idea that there was no sort of legislation going on, that there was no process, so to say, about their status and what kind of money they are earning or not earning. Like, I had no idea about that. So just to get more involved, that's why I came here to talk about it.
So Ranjan, because you mentioned slavery, I just want to mention one thing. So in NCR, okay, we have, in a lot of bigger cities and towns, we have the concept of live-in help, live-in domestic workers. In NCR also. So there's a very interesting trend in NCR, okay? And the trend is that your live-in help is locked in when you go for a weekend trip or when you go for a movie. They're actually locked in. They're kept under lock and key for two reasons. One, कुछ चुरा के भाग गई तो, also because उनकी रक्षा के लिए, to keep them safe. So, okay. I actually got into an argument with somebody very close when that person suggested that I lock in our help. This was a couple of years ago when we were stepping out to watch a movie. And I refused to do that. And the person said that, but everybody does it. And I said, I can't. And then I had to put forth a reasonable argument because, the reasonable argument was that this is a person, but that argument was not getting through. So
okay being locked in?
Yes, yes, all of them are okay being locked in because they have.
I'm saying the employer.
Huh?
The employer.
The employee, no?
No, employer.
Would she be okay? Yeah, let's not get there because, of course, they are a different breed of people. Of course, these people, remember, this is how we talk. So the argument that I ended up presenting to this person was, आग लग गया तो घर में? What's the escape route? How will she escape अगर घर में आग लग गया तो? So I'm not locking this person. I ended up to pacify that entire situation. I, of course, took her out with us for the movie. That wasn't a big deal. It was a small inconvenience for her, for us, that we decide to do these things, lock in people, because somehow we forget that this is a human being. So slavery still exists right in the homes of the people that we know and hang out with. Okay. Every day. And in NCR, I have seen this happening so much. It's extremely prevalent in NCR. The first time I mentioned this to Swapnil, he was really, really shocked. He stays in Mumbai, where the domestic worker is given the key to your home. Because they say you can trust people in Mumbai, you can't trust people in Delhi, whatever the ridiculous argument is. Basically, we just forget that we are dealing with human beings. So the fact that there is no law makes us do these kind of things. So we are still keeping slaves. We are,
Everybody is capable of, I mean, everyone is capable of doing that in the sense that, I mean, no matter how good a person you are, you still have the bad sides in you. Like, you know, if given a chance or maybe an opportunity or whatever it is, the bad side or the worst side of you is going to come out somehow or the other. I had seen this film, The Experimenter. It was regarding a scientist who had actually done this research of an experiment about how everyday person, like they still have that capacity to do harm. Like, you know, if you can convince them or you can just give them some reason, like a mother, and I mean, she was trembling and all, but she still did it. Like, you know, basically the experiment was talking about that and how it created some controversy and all. So we were just talking about that. And it just shows that whoever we are, if given an opportunity or if we are pushed, then it can come out. And just the fact that, you know, you're talking about how amidst us there are people who treat like that. And it's because we have this idea that hum hai, wo hai, you know, us and them. Wo kar diya humne. Or because we have given that thing, wo divide kar rakha hai, to now we can treat them any way we want. वो हमारे जैसे नहीं है तो वो
ये लोग ऐसे होते हैं. They don't deserve our sympathies. Don't get into that trap. Don't get manipulated.
It makes us easier to behave that way.
It makes things very easy if we dehumanize them, if we forget that they are human beings. It's all about convenience, and we've chosen convenience over anything else.
Thank you, Ranjan. Thank you, Anuradha. I think, so my name is Swapnil Manish. I'm one of the co-founders of LoudST. So this was one discussion that me and Anuradha, we had a chat, Instagram live chat, and we decided to then, make it a little more widespread, get more people to talk about it. And, it's such a topic which the middle class, the people like us, the working class, the nuclear families, we don't even stop and think. And, I've been guilty of that. I've not stopped and thought about whether, is this such an issue? And this is, over the last few months, as, I've started taking cognizance of this. I've started thinking about it. You suddenly realize how much we dehumanize, this us and them that you're talking about. Oh, very, very clearly so. I mean, we say us as if we are a different breed. And then on one hand, we do this. And on the other hand, we say that classism doesn't exist. I mean, casteism doesn't exist. We are not communal, or we are all of that and more, So we just say us and them, so there's a classism already. When we screen people, domestic workers, that is, we make sure that, they are of a certain caste, especially if you want them to cook, and, so you ensure that they are of a certain caste in many cases. You also ensure that they are probably of a certain religion, especially if you want them to clean your house and your puja place. So there is so much of that, which manifests in different ways. And when you're referring to, different examples that we see in media, please remember that the examples which come out in media, they're the extreme ones. And they're extreme examples of the behavior that all of us contribute to. We all, in some ways or the other, are bits of that. And the extreme version is what you get when, you obviously unleash violence. It could be verbal, it could be physical, it could be, So Anuradha is right when she mentioned that, people lock up, workers, domestic workers in NCR. It was shocking because I come from Mumbai. And in Mumbai, there is more respect in terms of, doesn't mean that we don't humanize them in Bombay. We do. We don't dehumanize them, I'm sorry. We do dehumanize them even in Bombay. It's just that, working conditions are, more women have worked in Bombay for longer as compared to NCR. So possibly, it's easier to give a key and all that. The fact is, this segment of the society has been neglected for so long. I mean, the first time anything close to a domestic workers bill was discussed way back in 1959. And yet, you don't have a formal bill. You're still discussing. What it means is two things. The politicians can obviously talk about it because they need votes. And this is one community where you can obviously drive them to vote for you, because you'll say, okay, hey, we'll fix the legislation, we'll give you better working conditions, we'll possibly fix minimum wages. And then once you elected, you forget. It also talks about the middle class's apathy. I mean, we don't even care. We don't care. So if we don't care, we are not going to our political masters and telling them this is something that you have to pass. There's no pressure on the political class at all. So they're not absolutely, they're under no pressure whatsoever to pass legislations. We've had a few legislations. There's obviously, the fact that some states like Maharashtra, Rajasthan, they've stipulated certain minimum wages for domestic workers, and yet domestic work hasn't been made part of the list of services in these very states. So what it means is whatever people in legislature they're doing it in a very half-hearted manner, and it's very half-baked. It makes no difference. I mean, it makes no difference. I mean, today you talk about 4.7 million workers, domestic workers in India. I think that's the official estimate. I believe the number is closer to many more, at least double. So which means we're talking about 1 crore domestic workers, and that is not a small number by any stretch of imagination. And if you look at the proportion, it's very clear that more than 60% of this comprises of women. And why does it comprise of women? Because you can, as employers, that is convenient for you to you pay them less and get your work done. It's very convenient. I mean, if you look at how within domestic workers, most of the male jobs are either that of a security guard or of a driver. And look at the salary disparity. The drivers clearly make at least double of what your maids make, right? And maids are typically, I mean, she very clearly, I mean, you didn't realize, you said, ki wo bhag gayi to. You didn't say bhag gaya to. The example that you gave was of a widow. You didn't give any other example. Why is that? Because you automatically assume that the maid is going to be a woman. So a lot of that, we've talked about. I think all of us are aware. I'm sure everybody else will also talk about the ILO Convention 189, which India has accepted, and yet we have not ratified it. Because it stipulates certain minimum working conditions, certain minimum wage, certain fair treatment, which needs to be institutionalized. We are shying away from institutionalizing them, and hence, despite having accepted it in 2011, we still haven't ratified it. So a lot of that. We obviously have a lot to speak about this. Sometimes I wonder. I mean, when we ask our employers, our own employers, to treat us more fairly, give us better working conditions, we expect a salary increase every year. We expect better salary all the time. Why don't we treat our own domestic workers the same way? I think that's something that we should all ponder upon. I'll leave it at that. We'll obviously come back to this. Yeah.